Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome to today's video. So as you can see in the Bastion, it is the spooky season, Halloween season, and in celebration of that, I guess they're doing a couple of challenge tournaments, my favorite content in the entire game. Now, what is interesting is that this is actually a repeat of what they did last year, the exact same two conditions for the exact same tournaments, probably because the two factions chosen are kind of Halloween themey-esque. Today, we're going to be tackling the first of the pair, which is the Undead Hordes in Ice Golem. So if we pop into the tournament itself, it's actually a turn attack tournament, not a standard Ice Golem tournament, so you're better off trying to minimize the amount of turns you're going to take and do the highest stage you can do possibly. In terms of the incentives to participate, you do, as always, have the chance to get some 6-star relentless gear if you happen to top your group. Always check your group just to see if it's easier to compete in, just because Ice Golem is typically the least farm dungeon in the game, and if you can put together a fairly straightforward team, even if it's on normal mode and some medium to hard stage, you can definitely participate in this depending on the ease of your group. But over here on the rewards on the right, you get a decent amount of gems. That's worth one energy refill, so to speak. You get 3/10 of a primal shard, you get some pretty decent stack of the medium oils, and then a quarter of an eternal soulstone. So nothing here is a must-have, but I think these are pretty decent rewards considering the fact that there is nothing else going on right now. The fusion starts next week, next Thursday on Halloween on that day, and so you have nothing better to do with your energy than spend it on this or spend it on the champion training tournament that's going on at the same time. Popping over to the dungeon itself, let's talk about the best stages to farm. As always, for any restrictive challenge tournament, I do recommend that you don't do hard mode unless you really feel confident that you're going to be able to tackle it. In this case, there's very few, if any, HP burners in the Undead Horde faction, aside from, I think, like Crypt King Grawl. So you'd be very strapped in order to do damage in the air quotes proper way to the boss. So I would definitely focus on doing normal mode because there are a decent amount of poisoners and other DPS options that you could use in order to farm it. So with that said, for normal mode, the best stages to farm would be stage 25 if you're focusing on gear, the best gear quality. Stage 20 is typically the most efficient stage in terms of points per energy. However, because this is a turn attack, it's a little bit less efficient by comparison because that's a lower stage. But if you can run it relatively quickly, it might balance out relative to a really slow run or many turns on stage 25. And then, of course, if all else fails, you can always run stage 16. It's Void Affinity. It's much easier and you still maintain a chance to get 6-star gear, and thus you can just stack up points at your level. So one of the cool things about this being a repeat tournament of the same time last year, I was able to actually look at the team I used last year, which was on stage 20, and well, I can show you that just as reference. But in this case, I did build a team to handle stage 25, and this is the team here. And so again, just for reference, I'll point you to the team that I used last year for stage 20. So we have Gorgrab, Vlad, we have Dark Elhain, Rodos, and Vogoth. And essentially I have the exact same team, but in this case, we're adding in Bad Elkazar over the Vogoth because now he's our poison win condition in the end. And ideally everyone else dies, but typically it's him and Rodos, or him and Rodos and Vlad, or something like that. We'll see in the run here. But yeah, pretty straightforward team. Bad Elkazar is the poisoner. We have a AoE debuffer and DPS in Vlad, another DPS in Dark Elhain. Technically, she could be beneficial with the freezes, but most of the time, if the Ice Golem takes a turn, all the DPS just kind of die. So we don't really get the anti-freeze aspect of her kit, but unless she's just an AoE nuker. Rodos doing Rodos things, single target, but also the chance to block revive on the minions. And then Gorgrab is our reviver healer and increase attack champion for the waves. Granted, I turn off the revive for the boss stages. We'll see. Let's go ahead and see this team in action. Like I've pretty much covered, it's fairly straightforward. We have a trio of DPS and then a little bit of increased attack to help them nuke a bit harder, and then a poisoner as our win condition, a tanky poisoner as our win condition. So you can see here, we got a lot of nukage coming through. Vlad is a really awesome champion. Previous fusion, a lot of people probably in the modern day don't have him unless you're playing for many years, but the AoE decrease defense and block active skills is a good hybrid of control as well as debuffing. So about 30-ish seconds or so, 35-ish to get through wave 1. There we go, on to wave 2, rinse and repeat. So we put out some poisons, increase attack, do a little bit of damage, and get our control and debuff abilities out there. Now, if anyone happens to die during the waves, usually it's going to be Dark Elhain, if anyone at all. Gorgrab can revive them on the waves. I let him do that. But when it comes to the boss, it doesn't really matter. The extra damage is honestly kind of dangerous as far as potentially usually triggering the counterattacks from the boss, so we don't really mind if Vlad, Dark Elhain, and even Gorgrab end up dying. Rotos kind of just starts to steal so much HP that he gets so tanky that it's hard to kill him, and then Battle Khazar is meant to not die just because he's built relatively tanky. So we'll look at all the builds on these champions after the run. So Dark Elhain went down there, not a problem. She gets revived here, and then we're basically good to go in about 90-ish seconds or so to get through both of the waves. Wave 2 does take a lot longer just because they have the increased defense from the Seeker passive, and so it just takes a little bit more hits in order to break through that. So here we are, about 90 seconds or so, all the way on to wave 3. And what is cool about Rotos is that his passive, or his ability to start blocking revive, is contingent upon how much HP he steals relative to him. But since the minions have so much HP, basically one A2 is enough to get above the threshold in order to actually be able to start blocking revive. Unfortunate, we didn't do enough damage on that one to land it, but nonetheless, it is possible. And you can see Dark Elhain already on the floor, unfortunately. But yeah, it doesn't really matter. Like I said, Gorgrab's revival ability is turned off. If you wanted to be more safe than an aggressive, definitely leave it on, especially if he's your only way to ensure that all your champions stay alive throughout the fight. So this is more of an aggressive tactic because I know that my primary DPS when it comes to the boss can actually finish it off if need be. So Vlad unfortunately survived the hit. Oh, there we go. There he goes. He's down now. Sweet. You know, obviously, again, this is a turn attack tournament, so the less turns, the better. And so that's why I kind of prefer if people were to die off. That way, just 2 champions can deal with the rest of the boss, because Gorgrab at this point isn't really doing all that much. But I guess the downside of Battle Khazar is that he also does provide a significant amount of healing. So he's probably going to stay alive for a good chunk of the time, maybe the entire time. But let's see here. Can we actually get a block revive? No, Rotos has just been barely missing it the entire time. It's unfortunate. So it is nice if you can land the block revive, just because, again, we're saving turns because the minions will never be able to come back. So it's a little bit more efficient that way. And Gorgrab survives once again. But if they don't end up killing the minions, it's not that big of a deal. No one has War Master on this team, so we don't have to worry about that. Maybe we might get super unlucky one of the runs eventually where Battle Khazar will trigger it just with his AoE on the A1. But more often than not, that's usually not going to be the case. So I think we have a back-to-back block revive here coming up here. Yep. So there we go. Minions are down, and now we can just focus all our attention on the boss. It is also a little bit of a bummer that I mean, not a bummer, but I do have 6-star Awakening on my Roto, so he does have Ward of the Fallen, so we get that extra animation time. Thankfully, it doesn't really count towards the turn counter, but it does count in terms of time spent on the dungeon. So depending on how many times he actually takes turns and hits, the run can take anywhere between about 3.5, and I can see we're converging more towards 4 minutes in this particular run. So yeah, it'd be more ideal if I could just have Battle Khazar be the last one to round things out. But there was a bit of a trade-off between other champions that I was trying out and the speed of the waves versus the speed of the boss, and it kind of evened out to be around 3.5 to 4 minutes regardless. And so I went with the safer option just to make sure that they were not wasting energy. So I guess in this case, it's less about the time and more about the turns. So 124 on the turns, and that will give me 74 for both of the runs because it is a super raid. So about 37 points worth of credit in the turn attack per run. I guess the easier way to think of it is that roughly it's about a 2-to-1 ratio in terms of energy versus points in a turn attack tournament. So as promised, let's go ahead and take a look at the builds on these champions on these teams. Note that this is not meant for you to copy necessarily the builds on these champions, but just for transparency so you guys understand exactly how they were doing what they were doing. So starting off with Dark Elhain, who is in a very budget Savage set, and I built her very, very slow because she is more of a niche arena swap-in champion for anti-freeze, anti-torment type compositions. Although more recently, I've kind of taken her out of my default or preset teams because a lot of torments lately have been running in Stone Skin 2-turn, and so she's just ineffective for the first 2 turns, and it's just kind of a waste of time. So I've been experimenting more with like bombs and immunity cleansers and stuff like that to deal with like solo torment type defenses. But I digress. So total stats here: 42,000 on the HP, 6,000 on the attack, 2,200 on the defense, 158 on the speed, full crit rate 226 on the crit damage. So nothing crazy, and then we don't care about her accuracy or resistance. For the blessing, I do have Crushing Rend on her in hopes that eventually this will get out to 6-star, but I'm not trying to force that to happen. But eventually, in theory, eventually it should happen. And for the masteries, I did opt to go down the offense tree, a little bit of the defense tree, ultimately ending on Helm Smasher because we want her to ignore as much defense as possible. Next up, we have Gorgrab, who's in Perception and Speed, and apparently not immortal. That's kind of awkward. Not sure why he has 3 pieces of Perception on, but I'm not going to fix that. Interesting. So 55,000 on the HP for his total stats. Don't care about his attack. 3,100 on the defense. 257 on the speed, so decently quick. 363 on the resistance, so he has enough resistance to not get hero reduction in decreased defense from the minions. And then 217 on the accuracy, which is enough to strip buffs with his A1 every so often, particularly on wave 2 with the increased defense from the Seekers. He does have Phantom Touch on for some reason, not really sure. That might have just been a default blessing I put on him way back when I got the 1-star from a Soulstone summon session, but there's probably better options that I could have used. Maybe the ore boosting one or something like that, not sure. And masteries, he's not really used. He's purely a Faction Wars champion, maybe Curse City if I need him, and so it doesn't really need any masteries. Next up, we have my bad Alcazar that I typically use in Dragon. He's in a Stalwart and Perception set, and that is primarily just to take less damage from AoE attacks. Helps us in Ice Golem, of course, but primarily it is in case he's the last one of the last 2 people alive in the Dragon. He just takes a little bit less damage from AoEs. So his total stats are as follows: 74,000 on the HP, 3,300 on the defense, 274 on the speed, 451 on the resistance, and 378 on the accuracy. Again, he's built for hard mode Dragon, so we have enough resistance to not be able to take any of the poisons or the weaken, and then enough accuracy to make sure that he can land his poisons. For the blessing on him, I actually went with one of the new ones that increases the value of continuous heals placed by this champion. So 2-star so far, but effectively his continuous heals are 5% stronger, but they can also restore destroyed max HP. I've never really used that particular functionality of it, but the main idea here is just to make his continuous heals heal a little bit more. And then for the masteries, kind of focusing on the defense and support tree, we ended on Eagle Eye just because I wanted to get the extra accuracy to make sure he can land his poisons, like I mentioned. And then notably, we're coming down the split of Lasting Gifts as well as Master Hexter through the middle, but also getting a rapid response and Arcane Celerity because we want him to take as many turns as possible, and then a little bit of healing, boosting extra HP, etc. Next, we have Vlad, the Nightborn in Speed, Cruel, and Perception. He is my Flux DPS champion for like Doom Tower waves. He's actually on my auto Doom Tower wave hard clear team, and of course I use him as well in Faction Wars and the Cursed City whenever applicable. So 44,000 on the HP, 5.7k on the attack, 248 on the speed, full crit rate 203 on the crit damage, which honestly is a lot lower than I'd like it to be, but his build is relatively complicated just to make him fast as well as have a decent amount of damage, but I digress. And then 363 on the accuracy, enough to be able to land it against Cursed City mobs as well as Doom Tower hard waves. For his blessing, he's gone through a couple of iterations, but I ultimately settled on Cruelty because he has 2 AoEs, and so he just has the chance to decrease their defense even more. Generally speaking, that is my default for AoE decreased defense champions, but I was secretly hoping as well that he would eventually get like 6-star Crushing Rend and stuff like that, but that's most likely not going to happen in the near term, and so I went with the more viable, helpful option for a low level of stars in Cruelty. For the masteries, focusing on the offense and support tree, we picked up a lot of the accuracy-esque type stuff through Lore Steel and Master Hexer, of course, because we can also extend the duration of block active skills, which is pretty useful. And then the offense tree ultimately ending on Helm Smasher and picking up as much damage type stuff along the way. And then lastly, we have one of the powerhouses of my account, Rhodos the Lost Groom, in a Savage set, and his Want to Be Merciless set, which is just 1 piece for now. Hopefully, eventually that becomes a 6-piece set, but I digress. Total stats here: 52,000 on the HP, just under 6,000 on the attack, 253 on the speed, full crit rate 290 on the crit damage, and then we don't care about his accuracy or resist. As you can see, he is fully awakened, and unfortunately for me, I did not pull any of his souls along the way. All 6 levels were farmed up and purchased through the Soul Merchant. I opted for Ward of the Fallen because it has a really interesting interaction with his passive where you take reduced damage, but it still triggers the passive because you would have taken taken full damage or half of his health. And so what ends up happening is that a lot of the times, if you're going to die in a double hit without the blessing will prevent you from dying from a double hit, meaning that it typically takes about 3 hits to take down a Rotos from full HP. But I've also seen people run like Phantom Touch because you can get a significant amount of bonus damage when it procs. When it comes to the masteries, once again, kind of a nuker type build here with the offense and the defense tree. Pretty standard Z split here on the defense tree, ultimately ending on Retribution. And then the offense tree getting as much damage as possible and ultimately ending on Helm Smasher. Now, of course, some of you might be saying, I don't have those champions, I can't make that team. And don't worry, I've got you covered, so we can talk through some of the potential other options that you could use to build a team from the specific faction. And we'll break it up into useful categories. And the first one is the poison and or HP burn champions. And starting things off, we do have Crypt King Grawl, who does have an AoE HP burn on this ability here, but he also has a little bit of control in which he can place an AoE freeze and then extend the duration, or I guess reset the duration of the HP burns. And so again, he can be used in hard mode just because he's like the only AoE HP burner in the entire faction, but I think it's a lot easier to build a team around poisoners if you can get away with it. So of course we featured Bad Alcazar in our team here. You can also run UDK in his grand old toxic set build and kind of solo through certain stages. I know that was fairly popular when UDK first came out for some people progressing through. Nethril, honorable mention, has poisons on the A1 triple hitter, but probably not the most utility champion in that regard. You're also Soul Cage, his passive, you know, he's well known for soloing the Scarab King, but he can also place poisons with his passive in Ice Golem. Granted, you have to be hit, and the Ice Golem is a fairly slow boss, so it's probably going to be a very slow run, but nonetheless, he is a poisoner in that regard. And then we come all the way down to the rares, and then we have Frozen Banshee, of course, who some people have run her like as the last champion alive to go against the boss, kind of like what I was trying to do with Battle Khazar, because she can just kind of place poisons with the A1 and then place the poison sensitivity with the A3, kind of do some damage, put her in like a regen set, I believe, or something like that. So she can definitely be the solo champion when it comes to the boss stage. And then for debuffers, you basically only have Vlad if you happen to do his fusion from forever ago, but if you weren't around back then, you basically have no way to do AoE decreased defense, and that is quite unfortunate. But you can kind of just stack the deck with a bunch of DPS, and eventually you'll break through all of the waves. For other supports you can use, Morrigan is pretty cool. She has a decent amount of turn meter control as well as decreased accuracy and buff stealing. You've got Scartorsus in a similar vein. He can steal buffs from the A1, but also has a pretty decent cleanse and healing ability in his kit, AoE on the A1 if you wanted to run him in a stun set. Mishault here can be a pretty good CC champion with the AoE 2-turn True Fear, but also the Leech to help people heal up, increase speed to keep your team running a bit faster. Sifia the Lost Bride kind of goes without saying, block debuffs, increase defense, increase speed, turn meter fill, very powerful support champ. You could probably keep your team running on her own. And then dropping down to the epics, you do have Gorgrab and Seeker, similar vein where they have turn meter fill with increased attack, again helping to power up your nukers. You have Husk, who can do a little bit of control with his A1 provoking, but also the enemy max HP hits. And then you have Mausoleum Mage here, who has a bit of a cleanse, but also just a lot of buffs, increased defense, increased crit rate, I believe, increased something else. I forget exactly which one it is, but he has 3 different buffs on one ability. And then honorable mention all the way down here to Grinner. If you're really, really strapped and you need a reviver and you don't yet have Gorgrab, then he is a rare who can revive people as needed. But that's probably something more for someone in the early to mid game, and you're probably doing late stage 16, for example. All right, so there you have it. That's going to be my strategy for the Undead Horde Ice Golem tournament. Like I already mentioned, it's basically a copy paste from my team from last year, but we do have the upgrade of Battle Khazar, and that allowed us to jump from stage 20 up to stage 25. So it's a little bit different than what I did before. But as usual, let me know in the comment section down below what team you're going to be using if you're participating in this tournament at all, or if you're skipping it, let me know what you're deciding to do instead. The next challenge tournament in the Halloween rotation is going to be Knights Revenant in the Dragon's Lair, and this weekend is another Raid Stream weekend, which will be on my Twitch channel linked in the description box down below. It has the same name as my YouTube channel here, and I'll be building out that team among doing some other things, hanging out, playing the game on Saturday morning, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, so I hope to see you there. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below, and if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content just like this one. We are on the road to 1,500 subs, hopefully by the end of the year, so again, if you are enjoying the content, feel free to subscribe to the channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.